He's the man with the plow and a story to tell. Lucky's got the truth and he knows it well. A defense so sharp it could cut through lies. David Yannetti with justice in his eyes. Canton's got questions. We've got the crew tonight on the Chronicle. They're telling it true. It's the man with the plow and a story to tell. Lucky's got the truth and he knows it well. Defense so sharp it could cut through lies. David Yannetti with justice in his eyes. Tom's got questions. We got the crew tonight on the Chronicle. They're telling it true.
I don't want to be, I don't drive a tow truck.
My apologies.
Is this funny? I'm sorry.
This is not funny, sir.
Of course, there are other friends, but you.
Miss Yannetti, please no more, of course.
Of course, Your Honor. We're done here.
Hey, folks. Hopefully, you guys can hear me. We had a little technical difficulties. It is what it is. Usually we're Sunday nights at 7, and we're late. We are fashionably late, and I apologize for that. It's all my fault. Welcome to Canton Chronicle Live. I'm your host, John Camo. With me again is my often silent co-host, Eric D. And on time, she was, and in person, Boozy Beauty. I would like to first thank Brian Hale for allowing us to use some of his pictures in that opening. So one thing we've been clear about on this show is that we never set out to compete with other platforms or be the first to land a guest. We watched the media frenzy unfold around the case, and while others rushed to get interviews, to break news, we held back. Not because we weren't invested. I've been here since the beginning. I watched as outsiders pronounce people's names wrong. We watched as the town was turned into a tourist attraction. We spent 3 years following every twist and turn, every contradiction, every courtroom revelation. But when the second trial ended, we made the decision to take a step back, to breathe, to decompress. Because this wasn't just about a trial. It was an exhausting, consuming chapter in the life of a community. And for many, a personal record. The Karen Reed case has gripped this community and beyond. Every angle has been dissected, every witness scrutinized, every frame of footage paused and debated. But what often gets lost in the legal noise are the people behind the headlines. The individuals who lived the story, not just the courtroom, but the long, heavy hours in between. Joining us tonight are two men whose roles in this case could not be more different, and yet both carried extraordinary weight in very human ways. David Yannetti, one of the leading members of Karen's amazing defense team, who stood at the center of 2 grueling trials, became not just a legal strategist, but a lightning rod for public scrutiny and a voice for a woman fighting for her life. What toll does it take professionally, emotionally, and personally, and when you go after leading a defense like this? And also with us, Lucky Loughran. He wasn't part of the inner circle or the police force. He wasn't looking to be in the spotlight, but he became part of the narrative when he simply did his job, plowing snow on a cold January night and testified to what he did and didn't see. What happens when you're pulled into something bigger than you've ever imagined? What's it like to live through 2 trials and the weight of a town divided? This show is not about relitigating the case. This is about understanding the impact outside the courtroom on lives, families, careers, and the community. Because when the cameras are off and the verdicts are read, people still have to live with what happened. So, since Lucky and I were both proud members of the Canton High School Band, we've decided to pay it forward the best way we know how. 100% of the profits from tonight's show, whether it's in Super Chats or through the Venmo, will go towards purchasing new instruments for the Canton High School Band. Lucky and I will be reaching out to the current band director to find out which instruments are most needed, and we'll use those funds to try to make those a reality. Whatever we raise, we're putting right back into the music, and we will personally deliver those instruments to the high school. So,
John,
yeah, Eric.
what happens if we only raise enough money to buy a harmonica?
Some poor kid's gonna get a cold sore.
Well, let's hope we do better.
So, Lucky, you're right here. We're going to bring him on. And with us remotely, David Yannetti. Thank you, guys.
Thank
Hey,
you.
John. Hey, Brian.
Hey, Dave, how are you?
Very, very, very well. Thank you.
So, I'm going to start with you, David. Back in early of 2022, private investigator Steve Scanlon, someone with a background in corrections and an acquaintance of Brian Albert, reached out to your office with a tip that ultimately shifted the trajectory of the Karen Reed case. He wasn't a witness to what happened, but his call marked the first moment someone from outside the immediate circle suggested John O'Keefe may have been beaten rather than struck by a vehicle. Have you ever found yourself wondering, what if Scanlon never picked up the phone that day? What direction do you think the case may have taken without that early push toward an alternate theory of what happened at 34 Fairview?
Well, John, thanks for having me on tonight. I told you, and I actually put out on X that the reason I'm here is that Brian Loughran asked me to be here. But Brian was an unbelievably cooperative professional who, he did everything that I had asked of him during this, defense of these 2 cases, made himself available, came in and met with me, prepped with me, was, consistent in what he had seen and what he didn't see from the beginning, and held true to the truth all the way, through till the end. So, Brian asked me to do something, and I'm going to do everything I can to do it. So that's why I'm here tonight.
And thank you for pushing through. We can tell that you have a little bit of a bug, so thank you so much.
Oh, no problem. Yesterday, I actually had a bout of laryngitis, and I had trouble speaking to a judge. It's better today, so thank you. Just to give you some perspective here, some of this has been reported and revealed, but, we got an anonymous call to my office on the very day that Karen was arraigned in Stoughton District Court. Things happened very quickly. This was Saturday, the 29th, that John O'Keefe's body was found on Brian Albert's front lawn. And, by February 2nd, Karen had been arrested and arraigned. And, it was kind of a whirlwind, experience. And I was still working predominantly out of my home office where I am right now. And, received a message from my paralegal saying that somebody named Mike Lynch had called the office and had information about the Karen Reed case. And this was a point in time where we weren't getting a lot of tips. And believe me, that would change over time. We were inundated with tips for 3 years. But so I called this person back. There was a gravelly voice on the phone, and said his name was Mike. I asked him for his last name. He said Lynch, and he said to me that John O'Keefe was not killed by a vehicle. He was beaten up by Brian Albert and his nephew, and he didn't name who the nephew was. At that point in time, I didn't know who Brian Albert was, and certainly I didn't know that he had a nephew. So he by the end of the call, he admitted that his name was not Mike, but he was not going to identify himself. He wanted to remain anonymous, and he didn't really give us any actionable information at that point. It wasn't like he named witnesses that we could talk to, or gave us any leads that we could follow up on. It was just more. This case presents more than meets the eye. So it was eye-opening. But to answer your question, had he not called us, we would have wound up in the identical position that we ultimately wound up in, because within a couple of weeks after January 29th, we sent our investigator out to see if he could track down who had plowed the area of 34 Fairview that night. And this is at a point in time where the DA's office really wasn't giving us much discovery. I was pounding the table every time I came into court, saying we need police reports, we need search warrants, we need witness statements, and I was just told, well, not yet. You'll be given those in time, which that was another sort of early harbinger of how the case would be handled, and it certainly was not the way I handled cases when I was an assistant DA. But in any case, our investigator, Paul Mikowski, went out to the DPW and, was told that Brian Loughran had plowed Fairview Road that night and early morning. And so Paul eventually reached Brian, and Brian was willing to talk to him. And the biggest surprise that we got is that no investigator from the police, state police or Canton police, anybody, had talked to Brian. And you have a body found on a lawn in the town of Canton, and it seems to me that criminal investigation 101 is you're going to want to track down any witnesses who may have information about what happened or didn't happen. So it was shocking to me that nobody had talked to Brian Loughran. We felt like we had this kind of secret nugget of information, and we did not reveal it for months. We sat on this. Brian gave us a full statement, consistent with what he ultimately testified to at trial, obviously. That he had gone by, tried to make 3 passes, and the first time there was no body on the lawn at 2:45 in the morning. The significance of that was not lost on us. I mean, right away, I knew if there's no body on the lawn at 2:45 a.m., that means my client's innocent. And it's not just coming from my client.
Absolutely.
That's coming from somebody unconnected to my client who has no reason to lie whatsoever. But he was adamant that, he's paying attention to the road. He knows the Albert residence, and there was nobody there. And so it was bombshell evidence for us. And, this was evidence that we started to collect to support our theory that somebody else did this. So, within a couple of weeks, we were already pointed in a different direction, which was consistent with the direction that Steve Scanlon, calling us anonymously, pointed us into. So, I think that, that combined with the autopsy photos that were released of John O'Keefe's arm, which, anybody looking at that with common sense, you don't need an expert like Dr. Marie Russell or Dr. Loposada to tell you that, that was as a result of an animal attack. I have no expertise in that area, and I can tell you that immediately, as anybody on this Zoom meeting could, and anybody watching this could, right? So I think we would have wound up in the same place, but I was, grateful that we got that tip early on.
Well, David and Lucky, I really do appreciate you guys coming on the Canton Chronicle. It's a true honor. David, there was a moment in the first trial when former Trooper Proctor testified under oath that he hated you. Hate's a pretty strong word. That's something that you don't hear every day in a courtroom. Can you elaborate on what really happened at the Kennedy School event and what he was referring to?
Sure. It was a unique moment in court for me. I've been practicing for 35 years. I've never had this happen before, where there were text messages where he expressed his hatred for me, so we knew that was coming, but I was expecting that's all that was coming, right? He was going to just say, I think it would have been advantageous for him to say, look, I was caught up in the emotion of this. Yannetti had just mentioned my name at Superior Court arraignment. I was just talking with, colleagues. I don't really hate him or whatever, or even to just say, yeah, I don't like him. We were, prepared for that. What we weren't prepared for was Alan asked him during the first trial, well, he's sitting right there. How do you feel about him today? And the response, as you'll remember, was, well, I don't particularly care for him. He goes, in fact, just the other day, he showed up at my sister's school to, intimidate her and say that, where is she? Is she working today? And, all this nonsense that's pure fiction. It's funny, there were cameras in the courtroom and they recorded a lot. But during the first trial, we did not have a camera facing counsel table. So unlike the second trial where you could see Karen and her attorneys, in the first trial, you couldn't. So when he said that, he's on the witness stand, all the cameras are on him. And at counsel table, I just went like, I can't believe it that he just said that. And when I say it's a unique experience, it's like, I've had plenty of witnesses on the stand that I think are lying. And I think I've exposed their lies by my questioning. But this was one circumstance where I knew what he was testifying to from my own personal knowledge, because he's talking about me. I knew it was untrue, and I just couldn't believe it. What's the explanation for that? I mean, it could be that he intentionally lied. That's certainly a possibility. It could be that his sister heard that I was at the school and misinterpreted what was going on and reported that to him. And then in this game of telephone, ultimately he thinks for sure that something happened when it's the furthest thing from the truth. I want to give him the benefit of the doubt and say that he didn't intentionally lie. He thought that something had occurred when it didn't, but that's not for me to say. I mean, but Brian's right here. He can tell you everything that happened, but from my perspective, you got to understand, I don't think I had ever stepped foot in the town of Canton in my life before this case. If you had asked me where Canton was, I may have told you it was closer to Worcester than to the South Shore, because I'm a North Shore guy. We don't mix generally. I mean, I've been.
North Shore roast beef, South Shore pizza.
Exactly. If I have to go to court on the South Shore, I find my way to the courthouse, but I don't know the South Shore very well. Yeah. So anyway, I got Brian on the phone, and I was like, look, I want you to take me on your route. So I figured I'll meet you at the DPW, which is where your route started, and we can just, you take me from there. And it was Brian who said, look, he goes, nothing happens from the DPW until I get to about the Kennedy School, which is kind of near Fairview. He goes, so, plug into your GPS the Kennedy School. I'll meet you in the parking lot. It's a big parking lot. So, I met him there. And, I think probably Brian can tell you the rest of the story.
You asked me to meet you at the DPW, and I didn't feel that was going to be beneficial for you. I figured it'd be easier for us to go to the Kennedy School because I'm responsible for cleaning the school after I'm done plowing. So that's a kind of halfway point. At that point, I said, let's meet there. And the very first thing I said to you was, I'm apologizing. I didn't have a change of shirt. I have my high vis, and that attracts attention. And wouldn't you know, there's the pictures coming right in.
Yeah. Well, it was funny. We both saw afterward there was somebody in that parking lot that must have been crouched down in a vehicle, and took a picture of Brian and Paul Makowski and me, chatting in the parking lot near the street. And you guys know this. Maybe not everybody watching knows this, which is the school is set way back from the road, right? So we just. I don't care about the school. I'm not even sure I knew it was a school, to tell you the truth. Maybe he just gave me an address. I can't remember. But we stayed near the area of the street because that wasn't the destination. The destination was take me on your route, right?
Right.
So yeah, somebody snapped a pic of us talking as if that was some type of nefarious thing that you're gonna prepare your case and listen to what a witness has to say, right? And
it's not every day someone does something nefarious wearing a giant yellow billboard.
It's very, very true. And Brian couldn't do something nefarious even if you asked him to. No. He's too much of a straight arrow. But we found out after the fact too that somebody at the school called the Canton police on us, right? So we show up there. We have a brief conversation. Brian takes me on his route, with my investigator. We come back. We talk for about 5 minutes in the same spot, and then I leave. But in the meantime, somebody had apparently called the police. So unbeknownst to us, when we came back to the lot the second time, there was a Canton police officer watching us, probably from some hidden spot. I don't know. And he produced a report. And that report said, yeah, I saw Yannetti and I saw Brian Loughran and another unidentified man. They were talking for a brief period of time. None of them looked toward the school. Nobody pointed toward the school. They appeared to just be, chatting, and then they left. And the officer never approached me. He never asked for a statement from any of us. We just get the report after the fact. And, that's why, I have suspicions about, did Proctor lie about this, or did he just get bad information and assume the worst? I don't know. There was a police report generated, and he's on the stand, and they never turned that police report over to us before he testified. So it's just kind of in keeping with the rest of the case. But it was, it's never happened to me before where I have personal knowledge that, because he's talking about me, that something's not true.
And the likelihood it's not going to happen again.
I don't imagine that it will.
No.
Lucky,
So-
I'm sorry, but I want to ask Lucky a question. You kind of have eagle eyes, and did you happen to notice that there was a police officer in a cruiser checking you guys out, or were you more focused on the conversation you were having with David?
I was very focused on the conversation and dealing with what Dave wanted. I didn't even realize it.
Wide open parking lot too. They were probably in
Kennedy
good
School
hiding.
has it's a very large parking lot. David, it's easy to forget sometimes that behind all the legal arguments and press coverage, but this was about you carrying someone's life in your hands day after day after day. That responsibility doesn't just end when the verdict comes in. Did you find that you were able to truly step away from the case, or is it something that still follows you in unexpected ways, whether it's in conversations, your own mind, or how people treat you in public?
So, the case was unique in that as a criminal defense attorney, you're not used to having the public on your side. And this was a case where the public was very much on our side. And, it was a bizarre experience to, walk into court and walk out of court with people, cheering for you and giving you the sign language, I love you sign, and, just cheering for you and rooting for you, and taking time out of their day to stand outside the courthouse. It was surreal. And since we've gotten the verdict, I don't think a day has gone by when I haven't been stopped somewhere, and somebody would say, "Hey, Yannetti," or sometimes they'll say, "You Karen Reed's lawyer," I get recognized a lot. That'll fade over time, but I've taken a lot of selfies with people. I've been stopped for a lot of conversations, and I have to say that you read about these celebrities that just can't stand it when the public is wants their attention. I fully realize that I'm a very temporary celebrity and that this is going to fade over time. And I am very much enjoying the attention now. Every time I get noticed, there's never been a time where somebody's, called me out or noticed me where they've said, you're a jerk, or, you're anything negative. It's all been positive, and it's been positive by people that maybe you wouldn't expect.
Has it been in like a weird place yet, where you say, "Oh my God," like really,
Yes,
of all places?
yeah. So I actually a couple of weeks ago I left for a long overdue vacation with my much suffering wife, and we went to Spain for 10 days. I'd never been before. It was awesome. But I was in a restaurant in Barcelona, and the next table over from us was, maybe 6 people. I don't know if they were family or friends or whatever. But I was taking selfies in a Barcelona restaurant. It turned out they were all from the Boston area, so it wasn't as cool as it would be as if they were from Spain and heard about the case. But I was in the Boston Municipal Court walking back to my office on Monday, and a Boston police cruiser comes by, beeps his horn, and out the passenger's window says, "Hey, great job," and just keeps going, so and that's consistent. I've publicly said this before. I've heard from so many police officers who are our biggest backers, because if you do shoddy police work, if you cut corners, heaven forbid if you lie, cheat, or steal, as a police officer, then your biggest enemies they're going to be the good police officers, and they were all on our side. It's been a really great experience.
Awesome. Lucky, after hearing all that, you're not a lawyer. You're certainly not in law enforcement, and you weren't one of the key players being analyzed every single day during that trial. But you were still there. You were still pulled in. You testified. You ended up being a witness on the stand twice. What has it been like for you to try to get back to the normal life after all of this?
It's been difficult at times, but it's been doing it. I've done what I could to try and keep my normal day-to-day going through both trials. So to me, it wasn't, too bad getting back to normal. But kind of echo along with Dave Yannetti, the accolades that are coming with this has been tremendous. It's been overwhelming at times.
I assume that there's been far more positive than negative interactions, even in the town of Canton.
Yes. Yes, it's been very good.
Good.
It's been good for me too, Eric. So David, I want to speak to as someone not hosting the show, but someone that grew up, and folks, Lucky's sitting right next to me, by the way. We just, multiple cameras. Both Lucky and I, we know the streets. We know the houses. When you grow up in this town, it's a small town.
Oh, yeah.
You know the streets. So when I didn't just watch the trial, I analyzed it like others did. And I think at one point, at least the first trial, I recorded almost 90% of the trial on my phone. And I went back and I did side-by-side matching statements and the video evidence. And I gotta tell you, I was stunned. Because we heard testimony, especially compared to trial 1 and 2, didn't match. Witnesses changed their stories. Some was subtle, some wasn't. And people like us that were really paying attention, we saw it. So what I noticed, things that didn't match up, like Julie driving Caitlin to the bar, Caitlin saying she came from Easton, or Julie putting donuts in a car in the driveway that we saw evidence that at 7 o'clock there was no car in the driveway. And then my favorite, Jen and Kerry both misremembering the same event, looking at Karen's car, and then we run into the house and having video prove it false. So my question to you is, did you also see those like in real time, and then knowing as the second trial was coming, like what's going through your mind when you heard their testimony change?
So testimony changing is not unusual. Excuse me. That happens in almost every criminal trial that I've done. Impeaching a witness with a prior inconsistent statement is very common. I will say, in fairness, it doesn't always mean that somebody's lying. You tell a story of what happened, and you never tell it the same way twice. Sometimes you remember details later on that you forgot the first time. Sometimes you forget the details that you remembered the first time. Sometimes you add things, sometimes you subtract things. And this is precisely why any criminal defense attorney will tell his or her client, do not talk to the police without an attorney, because you're not in control of what questions are asked. And sometimes your story appears to change just because you weren't asked the right questions the first time or the second time. It's not uncommon. But what is uncommon is a case like this where we had so many different sources of statements for the same witness, right? We had witness interviews in police reports. We had state grand jury testimony. We had federal grand jury testimony. And we had, a whole first trial where, Adam Lally called just about everybody and his brother and sister, right? So we had a plethora of statements that you don't often have in a criminal case. And, we were fortunate enough to have the resources to have somebody organize those for us, put them into binders. And, we probably had 40 or 50 binders that were full. Some witnesses would have 3 binders just by themselves. And, there's no way to prepare a cross-examination in those circumstances other than to, do the hard work, which is to go through every single statement that somebody's made, catalog it, and compare it against everything else that they've said. And by doing that, you really learn, the universe of statements that a person's made. And if they say something different on the stand, you're going to know because you've already cataloged everything else that they've said. So, the short answer to your question is you got to put in the time. It takes time. It takes preparation. You really got to know, all the statements that a person's made.
Lucky, you and I, we're very close in age, and we grew up in Canton and went through the Canton school systems. You've worked in the town for over 20 years, but during the trial, a lot of people in the town went quiet, avoided the topic altogether, out of fear of backlash and appearing disloyal. Did it put any added pressure on you or shift your relationships with people you've known your whole life?
Yeah, it put some people that I was not expecting to be distant, but I also understood the case. They didn't want to get involved. They didn't want to be public about it, nor did I. To me, I just went about my business. If they had an issue with it, the only thing I asked them to remember is I was just doing my job, and I told the truth.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Lucky, everyone wants to know, where did you get the nickname Lucky?
It is a nickname I got from playing street hockey when I was 12 years old. I was playing goalie against guys that were quite older than me, and I played a really good game, and they thought I was lucky. Not talented, but lucky.
And it was all
So you're
talent.
better than Havity.
Right.
Definitely. You hear that, Havity? He's better than you.
And I do need to tell you something that's going around on TikTok. You have a new nickname, other than Lucky. So everyone knows, all these witnesses get these nicknames that have daddy at the end of them. Well, I'm here to tell you that you are now known as Plow Daddy.
That's awesome.
Oh.
How do you feel about that?
I don't know quite yet.
I'm changing that in my phone. I'm putting that in my phone. My girlfriend's gonna pick up the phone. Who's Plow Daddy? David, everyone was so focused on all the stuff in the courtroom. I'm more interested in a couple of things, like what happened between the hearings, behind closed doors. 3 years is a long time to stay locked into one case, mentally, emotionally, physically. How did you keep yourself and the team sharp without burning out? And were there moments when you just had to step away for a day, if you could, to reset your mind to keep going?
So, for the second trial, I think we benefited quite a bit from having gone through the first trial. The first trial and the second trial, we were all living together. We each had our own rooms in a hotel in Boston. We had a conference room that we, used as a war room with all of our materials and binders and conference table. And so the first trial, excuse me 1 second. I'm still dealing with a little bit of a cough. I apologize. The first trial I found to be much more difficult because we were short one lawyer. It was, Alan, Liza, and me. Many more witnesses were called. We were drinking from a fire hose the entire time. We were as prepared as we possibly could be, but and we were just working almost 24/7. But it was just an overwhelming amount of work, and and not only that, but we were getting to know each other, right? This wasn't a team that had a long relationship together, and we were kind of getting to know each other as the case was going on and learning how each of us work and how best to get the best out of all of us collectively. And then for the second trial, we went back to the same hotel, but now we had the experience of having gone through it once. And I think we benefited by knowing each other much, much better. But I think the biggest advantage that we had the second trial was the addition of Bob Alessi. I felt strongly that this was going to be a difficult case to win unless we added him. He's an amazing guy, but he's an unbelievably skilled lawyer. I think at a pretrial hearing when the judge was saying, why do you want to add Alessi when I was, moving to have him admitted pro hoc vice? I didn't plan on saying this, but she asked the question. I was like, I don't know of a better trial lawyer in the country than Bob Alessi. And I meant it. And everybody saw it once, the case began. He is, someone that doesn't need a lot of sleep, who loves the law. He'll work until 3 a.m. and get up at 5 and, continue working before court. And he is incredibly skilled, particularly at direct examining and cross-examining experts. So he took a big burden off the rest of us. He took some very difficult parts of the case, and it allowed us to spend that much more time on our witnesses. I think as a team, we really coalesced. During the second trial, I felt like it was even more of a team effort than the first trial. I think all the lawyers on the team respected other members of the team. I think we each brought different strengths to the team, and we all respected each other's opinions. I think that contributed to the presentation that we made. So, in terms of how do you maintain your sanity, which I think was your question, the hotel rooms that we had an efficiency kitchen, and I think there were videos that were circulating on the internet of Alan's talents as a chef, which I had no idea about, but he's really good. And he inspired me to not do DoorDash as much and to cook on the stovetop that I had as well. And I think the biggest difference is Bob's an exercise enthusiast, and there was a kind of a small little gym in the hotel, but he had worked out a deal with Equinox, which was walking distance from the hotel, which is a spectacular gym. Bob and I would head over there together to decompress. But it was difficult to completely get away. You said, do you take a day off?
Yeah.
Not really.
No.
David, it seemed like, especially in that second trial, that a lot of the rulings that Judge Canton ruled against you guys an awful lot. Did you feel like you were kind of fighting a battle with one hand tied behind your back?
Well, I mean, we fought hard for the positions that we took. We're all professionals, and we realize that you're not going to win every battle. And, you know, a judge has a job to do that's separate from the job that we have. And a judge is going to make rulings as he or she sees fit. So, you know, you go into any hearing, you know, preparing for the worst and expecting the best. I'm sorry, expecting the worst, really, and preparing for the worst, hoping for the best is what I should have said. And, you know, I'll say that, you know, there were some times when we got the best, but not as often as I would have liked. But, you know, you just roll with the punches. You know, we were prepared for adverse rulings, and we would pivot, and we would, you know, we do what we needed to do to win the case. And I'm really gratified that ultimately we did.
Excellent. Lucky, knowing that you might be called again to trial 2, did that change the way you moved around Canton and at work, at stores, just everyday life? Did anyone treat you differently once you did testify?
My day-to-day did not change. I knew right away when I was going to get called again. So for me, day-to-day was just waiting for Dave to tell me when I need to be there. As far as being treated differently, there were some people that didn't, you know, they would kind of needle me at work, and to me, it was what it was. I was just doing the job. I answered some questions honestly, and I would do it all over again.
Excellent.
Is there anything you would have done differently?
I would have found more ways to decompress.
So, especially with the first trial, I found it very difficult to decompress the first trial. The second trial, I didn't find it to be that difficult.
And I will say there's a lot of comments all over social media, especially after there's been recently new photos of you coming out, about how good you look, FYI. Just so you know.
Thank you.
Of course.
We went out a couple weeks ago, and yeah, I know you all my life. I didn't know that and we never been to. We went to Clyde's. I'd never seen you in Clyde's, and the times that I've always been to Clyde's, I didn't know that was actually your favorite place too. We love Clyde's, and to see the waitresses come running up to you, it's almost like you had your own Cliff Clavin chair. You know?
So, the history with Clyde's is a lady that my wife loved, and she was really great for Michelle. Michelle loved to talk, and would talk anyone for hours on end.
Yep.
We were having an anniversary. It was COVID. Clyde's had set up tables outside.
Yep.
And they arranged it that it was just going to be Michelle and myself outside. And since then, that she was so happy. She was able to go out during COVID and not have to worry.
Yeah.
You know,
They're good people down there.
they're absolutely the greatest.
Yeah. You ever sit on the seat? I know I have. I know Boozy has. Do you remember when they used to have the burger? If you could eat the burger within a half an hour, you got it for free? I did that. I didn't do it in a half hour, but I did finish. So I did. I was on a wall of fame. Wall of shame. I didn't make it in time.
Michelle and I had the prime rib.
Yeah.
That was our go-to every time.
Yeah. David, many of your witnesses, like Lucky here, were not for or against you. They're just people pulled into this trial. I'm curious, when you're watching someone like Lucky testify, polite, measured, even correcting Brennan very gently, What's going through your mind in that moment compared to when you watch someone like Officer Dever, who clearly came in guarded and had her sharp exchange with Attorney Jackson? Like, does your strategy shift while it's happening?
So, if I have a witness like Brian, I have two things that are going through my mind. Number one is I want to do the preparation in advance to make sure he is girded for cross-examination and ready for whatever they can throw at him. We spent a lot of time before trial. I think Brian came into Boston to our hotel, I think 3 times the second trial, which, we had already prepared the case, his testimony once for the first trial, but you can't rely on that, right? I mean, we already talked about the fact that, witnesses' memories fade over time. And I wanted to make sure that he was as prepared as he could be to not be tripped up. And I feel like we did the proper preparation. Having said that, when I stop questioning him and it's time for cross-examination, I'm just rooting for him. I want to make sure that, I'm hoping, I should say, that, number one, he listens closely to the questions, doesn't misinterpret what's being asked, and doesn't allow the other side to sort of trip him up with using different language and so forth. I had no doubt that Brian had the truth on his side, and that's 90% of the battle. And as I said, Brian couldn't tell a lie if you paid him. So that was not a concern of mine. A concern of mine was, as happened in the first trial, and I thought this was a funny moment in the second trial where, Brian was asked what was the time that you made the third pass by Fairview, and in the first trial he was adamant it was 5:30 a.m. when actually it was closer to 6:30. But the reason he said 5:30 is that he had trouble doing the math in his head on the stand, right? And so, those things are going to happen. But I'm just rooting for him. And in terms of Officer Dever, I don't think she did the prosecution any favors by how she came across. If I were Hank Brennan listening to her as she was testifying, I'd be squirming in my seat. There are some people that heard her testimony and were upset and angry that, she treated Alan with such disrespect and, was flippant and sarcastic. And, I don't think she made a very professional witness. But, I can't speak for Alan, but I can say that I was sitting at counsel table and I was just thrilled at how she was coming across, because I thought it was emblematic of the Commonwealth's case. I'm sorry.
Sorry, no, I didn't mean to cut you off, but to go back to Brian for a second, when we're still comparing to Dever.
Sure.
When you have, like, Dever she didn't testify in the first trial. Brian did. But Brian was cross-examined. Well, actually, he had Lally in the first trial, Brendan in the second. When you're prepping, is it like the NFL where you're pre-game and you know the cadence of the other lawyers? Like, it's going to be a completely different lawyer crossing him?
I expected that. I have to say that, Hank Brennan and I have each been practicing for a long time in the same kind of small fishbowl that is the, criminal defense bar of Massachusetts. And we have a lot of mutual friends and acquaintances. I think that, he knew of me prior to the trial. I knew of him prior to the trial, but we had never met. And I had never seen him, in action in a courtroom. So, yeah, I expected that he was going to have a different style than Adam Lally. And you prepare a witness in that in that vein. And, I think we did a little bit of that. But the main thing was making sure that, Lucky was, straight on, the times that he had always been straight on, and preparing him for questions, whether they came from Adam Lally or Hank Brennan, they're still questions. And whoever's questioning him, I just wanted to make sure, he had the answers.
Well, he's got another answer right now.
I remember about a week or two before the trial, and I think I was calling you on a regular basis because I was panicking about those questions coming my way, and you kept telling me, just relax, we got this.
I knew we did, Brian. I was being honest with you. I mean, I had no doubt that you were going to hit the ball out of the park. And I thought you did such a good job in the first trial. It was you surprised me by how much better you did in the second trial. I mean, I think that you were one of the pillars of our defense, and you were just a crucial, important witness. And I want to say this publicly too. This is part of the reason I wanted to go on the show tonight, which is I admire you. It takes courage to be a member of the Canton community, knowing all of the people on the other side, having grown up with them. You delivered pizzas for Chris Albert. You delivered pizzas to the Albert family home at 34 Fairview. Your brother is on the select board with Chris Albert. I mean, you are entrenched in that community. I'm in Massachusetts, but I'm not a Canton guy. I come in and I can do my damage and then I can leave, right? You can't leave. I suppose you could leave, but I think that Canton's always something that's going to stay with you. And you were in Canton, while this working in Canton for Public Works while this whole case was ongoing, and it takes courage and it takes nerve to say, I'm not going to claim that I don't remember. I'm not going to shade the truth at all. You ask me a question, I'm going to give you a truthful answer, and it doesn't matter who I know or what they're going to say about me or how people are going to look at me in town, because that's who I am. I'm just going to have a backbone, and I'm going to tell the truth. As I said, I admire the way you handled yourself. I admire what you did, and I'm just very appreciative.
Lucky, I got to tell you that over the last 3 years, one of the conversations that always came up was, boy, when Lucky gets on the stand, they're going to eat him alive. And I just kept saying, I said, I don't think you people really know Lucky. He's nothing but a straight shooter. You ask him a question, he's going to give you an honest answer, and it's not going to change. And that second trial, I mean, the first trial was great. That second trial, what I really found out about you was how good of a listener you were, because you really paid attention, and when he kept on, Brennan said that you were a tow truck driver. and you didn't want to answer that question, and finally you had to correct him, and I'm like, really, I missed it altogether, and I'm like, he really paid attention, and that's got to be tough when you're sitting on the stand, and you're under the light, you're in the hot seat, and the focus you had was awesome.
Eric, when we watched that at home, and the first time Brennan says tow truck driver, Brian's eyes lit up.
Yeah.
And then when he said it the second time, Brian just gave this wait a minute, and then he waited till it was his turn to talk, and then it was just incredible. It was incredible how he's like, listen, I don't mean to. Go ahead. Why don't you draw a line?
I'm sitting on that stand and I'm listening, and now he's saying tow truck, in my mind, I'm thinking, all right, can I spin this question so it's plowed? And I'm sitting there and I'm like, now I'm looking at Dave going, I can't answer this question. What am I supposed to do? So I just listened and very politely, I don't drive a tow truck.
It was awesome.
We're getting to the end, so
Yep.
we knew we had some limited time. So I'm gonna try to wrap this up a little bit with one or two more questions, if you don't mind. David, you got two more questions?
Sure. Yeah.
Alright.
Shoot.
We'll move ahead to, we'll give David one more, then we'll give Lucky one more. I know you alluded to it a little bit earlier, where we at home were lucky enough to get some behind the scenes glimpses, thanks Nick Rocco, of Alan Jackson's cooking, Bob Alessi's chiseled physique, right? And even Brennan, or that didn't come from Rocco, but we saw Brennan jamming out on his harmonica. What's something unexpected or quirky about you that the public doesn't know yet?
Well, probably some members of the public know, but I would say that I would characterize myself as a real nerd from the time I was young and through and until today. I have kind of some nerdy interests. I've had I call it rotisserie baseball team, a fantasy baseball team for, I don't know, 30 years. And I'm always keeping an eye on that and, digging into, baseball stats. I have a baseball card and comic book collection that, I use as a hobby. But beyond that, I mean, I've got 3 kids, including a 12-year-old daughter. I've got a wife who had to handle things all on her own for 3 months. So I try to be home as much as I can now. Especially now that the trial's done. I don't know. I don't think I'm a really interesting guy. I think the case is interesting, not so much me. But yeah, I mean that'd be about it, I guess.
No, you're very interesting, David.
What's your favorite car?
My favorite car?
Your trading card.
Well, I'm a big Red Sox fan, but I have a George Brett rookie card that for some reason I bought when I was 12 years old, and it's like in great condition.
Wow.
So sometimes I'll take that out and look at it.
You say George Brett, and all I can think of is when he went berserk, running around after the umpires.
There's a very funny video of George Brett that you should look up on the internet. I mean, there might be kids watching, so I'm not going to say what it's about. I'll tell you offline. But no, I think he was a funny guy.
That's a story for another day. Yes. No,
Yeah.
I mean, it was. So, Lucky, we've asked a lot, but is there anything we didn't ask? Is there anything you want to say? The mic is going to be yours. To anybody at home, any people watching or listening, that something you took away from all this?
I want to say something to Dave. We went through 2 trials, and I can say this honestly. I've never met a gentleman, a defense attorney, that considers me a friend. I consider you a friend, and you were so great to work for. You asked as little as you could of me, and I gave you as much as I could give you. The other thing I just want to know is that it was a tough decision to get involved, but it was the right decision. It was the correct decision, and I wouldn't change it at all.
God love you.
Thank you.
Yeah, good for you, Brian, and yeah, thanks for the kind words. It was my honor, and we were lucky to have you. And by the way, in closing, we had one cat in my family, and during the first trial, I don't know if everybody knows this, but during the first trial, we adopted a second cat, and the whole family on the group chat was bouncing around names, and I said, no, I get the name. So our second cat is named Lucky.
That's great.
Thank you, Dave.
I love that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's awesome.
Well, we want to sincerely thank both you, Lucky. David, thank you so much for taking your time, your honesty, and willingness to reflect on what's been a difficult 3 years for everybody. I can tell some of this wasn't easy. But I'm telling you people right now, all this came right from the heart from Lucky. And we're grateful that you guys trusted us here at the Chronicle by coming on and telling us your story.
Well, it was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me, and Brian will hopefully talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Thank you
See you,
very
bud.
much for doing this, Dave.
No,
Appreciate it.
it was my pleasure.
Thank you, Dave.
Take care, guys.
Gentlemen.
Bye.
Have a good one.
That was amazing. You want to say goodbye to everybody so we can, you can't just cut the show, we're going to say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Well, no, can I have one more question?
Yeah, one more question.
Now that David's gone.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
Did I just scare you?
No, I'm joking, but that's all right.
Okay, I have a number one question that my crowd on TikTok wants to know.
Sure.
Just one question.
Yeah.
How is it like working for Chris Albert?
Yeah.
Oh,
You don't have to.
you don't have to answer that. I think you got the
Hey,
answer.
Chris, listen, I'll tell you something. I've never had a problem with Chris before in my life. I've never had a fight with him.
I can
Really?
I can
I like
agree
it.
with you there.
I like him.
I never had any issues working for Chris. I did it for 8 years. Working for Dini Pizza played a pivotal part of my life. It was how I met my wife.
Yeah.
It's how I proposed to my wife, was delivering pizzas to her.
Really?
Yes. My kids were involved in the
You wait to the very end to tell us this?
they held the pizza box, will you, and I held the pizza box with the pizza in it. Marry me with the ring, so I'm handing.
No.
Wow.
Yep.
Yep, that's awesome, Brian.
I love that so much.
There you go.
See?
There you go.
There you go.
Hey, for all those that donated, we thank you. I know we didn't read any super chats throughout. I mean, we just wanted to make sure that we gave Brian time, we gave David time, because it was a limited amount of time. We thank you. We're gonna sit and total this all up. When that money comes in, Brian and I are gonna go to the band director.
Yep.
We're going to ask the band director, what do you need? We have X amount of dollars. We're gonna go buy it and bring it to you. That's what we're doing out of this show. Everything's going back to the band. Not $1 we keeping. So that's what we came up with.
Thank you.
No, I mean, no,
Thank you.
Brian.
So,
Based on what I'm
have a great
seeing,
night.
there's going to be some instruments, more than just a harmonica.
Oh, good. So no cold sores. Everybody gets their own reed. Maybe we'll get a sousaphone.
Oh, there we go.
Kid needs a sousaphone.
No, maybe we can get some Taylor Swift guitars.
No, we don't think it's us.
Why not?
So those of you that watched and stayed to the end, thank you so much. Good night.
Have a great
Good night.
night, everyone.
Have a good night.